Can we take our seats, please, so we can go? Thank you. Didn't mean to, is this too loud? Didn't mean to interrupt. Okay, autographs, okay. 50 cents an autograph. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Is this too loud? It sounds really loud up here. No? Good afternoon and welcome to this, the March 12, 2021 regular meeting of the Barefoot Bay Recreation District Board of Trustees. As we've done in the past, we'll start the meeting by taking a moment of silence to honor those who have given their lives in service to our country and to those who fight daily to preserve our freedom, our health, and our safety. Thank you. Mr. Loveland, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Gruno, we're going to take roll. I will tell you ahead of time, Mr. Morrissey contacted me to ask to be absent. He is attending a wedding, so he is excused.
Okay.
Would you please take roll?
Mr. Loveland. Here. Myself, here. Mr. Morrissey, excused. Mr. Nugent. Here. Chairman Mino.
Here.
We also have with us John Coffey, our district community manager. We have Stephanie Brown, our district clerk. And who's next to you, Stephanie? Cindy. Cindy, is she our assistant clerk? Yeah. Okay. We have Cliff Reppinger, our counsel, and I saw Charles Henley in the audience, financial management, and I thought I saw Matt Getz, property services, out there too. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Before I go on, as you know, I've tried very hard in the past couple of meetings to run our meetings as efficiently and procedurally correct as possible in order to limit the amount of time we spend on meetings and to make sure we do things right. With that being said, I did commit two procedural errors in the last couple of meetings that John and we recognized one of them the last meeting, and so I'm just going to mention them as we go on. They're not major things, but they're just so you understand some things. With the first one being approval of minutes. The first thing we should do, as you know, minutes are not official until they're approved by the board. They're just submitted to us. So the first thing we should be asking, of course, is are there any corrections or deletions or additions to the minutes? And so I will start, every time we do that, I will ask you that. Approval of minutes are up for dated February 23, 2021. Are there any additions, corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes dated February 23, 2021?
Move to accept the minutes of February 23rd.
I'll second.
Second, move second. Are there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed. Thank you. Treasurer's report. Mr. Loveland.
Treasurer's report.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you 1 second? I forgot my other note here. The other item we have is that the agenda we have, and I apologize for this, the agenda we have, of course, is a roadmap or a procedure we use to run a meeting. It's not an official document as such. And the one thing we should be doing every meeting is to ask if there's any deletions or additions to the agenda. We missed that at the last meeting because we deleted an item, and procedurally we actually did it wrong. It's okay, but we did it wrong. You can add items to the agenda at the meeting as long as there's a motion to add that item, there's a second, and there's at least a 2/3 vote to add that item. So the last meeting, if you remember, we deleted an item. We should have actually had someone say, I make a motion to delete such and such an item, a second, and then we voted to delete that. Having said that, and I don't add this now because of this, but having said that, I have an item that I would like to add to the agenda, but if it would cause confusion at all, it has to do with a second request for a waiver of fees for the Oktoberfest that's going to be put on. If there's any problem with that, I will just wait till the next agenda to put it on. But this is the proper time where you could actually put something like that on. The only things you can't add to the agenda at a meeting like this would be approval of the annual budget, approval or changes to the board bylaws, things like that. They all take specific announcements and postings and certain number of days, et cetera, for those things to have to be put on. Any questions or comments, anything? I mean, they all understand that. It's procedurally the way you usually run meetings. So again, if there's not a problem, coming up, we have Paradise Planners and the German Club and Kathy Mendez and Food and Service Beverages are getting together to put on a thing called Oktoberfest on October 2nd, 2021. They're going to be using Building A, the lounge, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Without going into any more detail, I would make a motion that a request to waive fees for Oktoberfest on October 2, 2021 be added to the agenda as item E2. Is that a problem with anybody, or is there a motion to second to that motion? Seconded by Mr. Nugent. Discussion, questions? If it is a problem, I will take it off and put it on the next meeting. But it's just a simple procedural matter.
Is this a ticketed event?
I'm sorry?
Is it a ticketed event?
No, they're going to, and I was going to explain all of that because we can vote it down or not then, but they're going to have vendors come in, they're going to use Building A, they want to waive passes for the pool because Kathy's going to have a band, they're going to help Kathy with paying for the band and do all kinds of things, so, and all of this money goes to, from Paradise Planners, et cetera, goes to charity after all their bills, et cetera, are paid. They're simply looking to waive the fees for getting into the pool area, et cetera, for that day so that people from Snug Harbor, from Edward, we're not going to broadcast this outside, but, people can come to this who are not residents. They also look at the fact that maybe renters and snowbirds who don't have a pass right then would be able to participate on that day. Questions, comments, other than that? If not, we need a motion. It would have to be three of us to vote this in. I would ask those all in favor of that, amending the motion or the agenda as stated, to vote aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Okay, with that, Mr. Loveland, I'm sorry, would you please go to the Treasurer's report?
This is the Barefoot Bay Treasury Report, March 12, 2021. Total petty cash, $2,500. Operating cash in banks, $3,201,185.79. Interest-bearing accounts, $699,364.48 for total cash balances in general fund of $3,903,050.27. Total deposits and assessments, $128,265.63. Expenditures for period 2/16 through 3/4 that are over $5,000. The Florida State Golf Association, $6,734. First Health Plans, $26,205.71. TLC Engineering, $31,466.86. Watertronics, $5,259.05. Whitebird Law, $15,458. Family Pools, $28,176. Florida Power and Light, $5,100.03. Special District Services, $13,595.75. Payroll for pay period ending 2/14, $59,641.27. Payroll taxes for the same pay period, $16,311.05. Payroll for 2/28, $58,818.98. Payroll taxes for that same pay period, $16,837.12. For sales tax, $10,465.15. Total expenditures over $5,000, $294,068.97. Expenditures under $5,000, $56,065.36. Total expenditures for this period is $350,134.33. I submit the treasurer's report.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented?
Move to accept the treasurer's report.
Is there a second? That second, move second, and thank you. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Audience participation, we have one letter, I believe. We'll do that first.
Richard Schwatlow, 636 Marlin Circle. One of the most important issues facing Barefoot Bay in the near term is the ability to generate revenue. This ability has been seriously hampered due to the cap imposed by the agreement with Brevard County. The amendment limits the raising the fees to no greater than consumer price index. I suggest that consideration be given to raising the one-time fee charged to new homeowners. This would not affect existing homeowners. My understanding is approximately 50 houses are sold monthly, and the fees for these homeowners could be increased substantially, and I do not believe it would inhibit home sales. A second point that was recently discussed at a BOT meeting was when a referendum would be required on beneficial projects. Our attorney stated that in his opinion, based on the last litigation findings, was that beneficial projects do not need to go out for the referendum. I do not believe that the trustees should vote and make decisions as what is beneficial and what is not. The residents should have a vote through the referendum process. By breaking the cost into individual spending requests, no one item would exceed the current charter spending level and require a referendum vote. I believe this process of breaking up the project is a bit deceptive to the residents, and if the total cost of the project were put out for a referendum, it may not pass. My last point is directed to the chairman. The operating rules for the trustees, page 3, section 6, item 5 states, quote, all questions shall be directed to the chairperson, answered by the chairperson, or the chairperson may refer to other members of the board, end quote. Do I misunderstand this section of the trustee rules, as the chairman does not allow questions to be answered during the meeting? This would seem to be contradictory to the rules. Can the discrepancy please be explained?
That's it. Thank you very much. Audience participation, the first one would be Louise. And as you come up again, please give your name and your address.
I remembered to turn the button to green. Louise Krause, 808 Sapadilla Drive. And I just came today to talk about a tremendous opportunity that was given to me through Concordia Lutheran Church to host the Johnson & Johnson Vaccine Clinic. It started out to be 250 people, and I thought nothing to it. And then it went to 1,000 people a day for 3 days, and I still think there's nothing to it, but it's a lot of nothing to it. Our phone lines went down, the computer went down, and we faithfully stayed the course. But I do want to thank the staff of the Recreation District and Mr. Coffey for being so willing to assist. Concordia has one phone line. Also, the CVO office has one phone line. And so taking all of the calls that it takes to make 3,000 people happy in a matter of 2 days takes a lot of phone calls, and I certainly appreciate all the help. They were so quick to step forward and say, of course we'll help. So thank you all. I will tell you that as of yesterday afternoon, all 3,000 openings are open, so this isn't an announcement to get more volunteers and more applications. It's a thank you to the community. We're proud to be able to help you through Concordia Lutheran. We're proud to be able to serve so many people of our community. Thank you.
Louise, question for you before you sit down, please. Louise, question. You said the appointments are all filled? They're all open? Are there still appointments available?
There are no appointments available.
No appointments
We
available.
did such a good job.
Well, you did. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Jeannie? No. Oh, you don't need anything to say? You want to say a few words about the Oktoberfest or not? Or do you just want to let me do it? I'll do it. Okay, thank you. Any other audience participation? Thank you. And again, Louise, thank you very much for your service. Thank you. Audience participation is closed. Unfinished business, the phased reopening discussion. Mr. Coffey.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, trustees, residents here and watching at home. The only recommendation staff has going forward is the planned shift of Saturday street dances from the afternoon to evening effective May 1st. And of note, that's the traditional start of 2 Sunday afternoon street dances versus every week. So May is an exception because of Memorial Day, but that's our recommendation going forward.
Question, or actually the recommendation is to, is there an actual recommendation or is it just?
Starting up May 1st to allow evening street dances on Saturdays.
Okay, you heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation?
I move that we accept the recommendation as is.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion or discussion? Questions? We do have a question. I would, if you don't, I was asked this earlier, and I thought we already had it. I'm not suggesting this. It was just a point of clarification. So we do not have the card room open, correct? It's just the billiards room. There are 2 different rooms. Is that correct? Okay. Okay, and we don't have the card room open. We had a question about that. Some people would like to have that open, but have we given that any thought? Is this still too early for such a small area?
If you're going to...
I'm not suggesting you change your recommendation. Don't get me wrong.
If you feel it's time to open the card room, we would probably then increase the capacities at our other indoor facilities like 19th Hole Lounge, this building, because the card room is the smallest indoor area. And folks who do want to play cards have the ability to reserve one side of this room. The poker tables are down at the card room, though. But if the board feels comfortable increasing indoors, we can go with that.
I'm fine with the recommendation. It is. I'm not looking to change it. Maybe we can look at it again at the next meeting, if that's us. Any other discussion, comments?
I agree with you, Chairman Mino. I still think it's a little early for that small space.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of the recommendation, the motion to accept the recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the item new business, the fiscal year 20 audit presentation. Mr. Coffey, introduce our people, and Mr. Henley.
Mr. Henley is here, our finance manager, along with Representative Moore Stephen Lovelace, our auditing firm.
No, okay. All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Joel Knopp, and I'm a shareholder with MSL CPAs and Advisors. Yes. Yes, buttons on. Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm pleased to be here to present the results of the fiscal year 20 audit for the district, and you should have a couple documents in your packet. First being our required communication letter under our professional standards, and I won't go through it in detail, but the main gist of it is that we had no difficulties in working with management to complete the audit. There were some new ways of going about things because of the impact of COVID on being on site, but fortunately a lot of things can be done electronically these days, and so we were able to get a lot of the documentation requests electronically and be able to perform our procedures without any significant interruption, and issue our report in the same timeline that we have previously. Also, pleased to report we had no disagreements over any accounting issues. Everything that was provided to us by management, we had no audit adjustments, and so the information was correct as provided to us. We did have one recommendation included in the letter just as a note to improve documentation as relates to formal reviews of wires that the district makes. But other than that, we didn't consider it a deficiency, just something that can be approved upon as far as documentation. As it relates to the financial statements themselves, you'll find our audit opinion on page 1 and 2. and it was an unmodified opinion, which means the financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles for governments. The management discussion and analysis follows our report beginning on page 3, and this is helpful for getting an overview of some of the more significant activity for the year for the district. Obviously, the biggest impact was in the areas of charges for services, as the COVID-19 pandemic interrupted the ability to offer a lot of services in the district, and the corresponding expenses also decreased as a result. On a positive note, though, the bottom line for the district was still a positive $238,000 for the year, increasing the fund balance in the general fund to $2.4 million at the end of the year, which was well in excess of the minimum required amount. So to end the year in a healthy position is really a good result for the district and gives you some flexibility moving forward. The financial statements you'll find beginning on pages 8, and you'll find the balance sheet, income statement, and then the notes follow that with descriptions of the items presented in the financial statements. There's nothing really significant in the notes. There's a lot of disclosure related to other post-employment benefits, but it's really not a significant liability of the district, but the requirements to disclose on it are quite significant. So you'll find a lot of pages referencing that. I will point you to page 25, which is the budgetary comparison schedule. I think that's important to get an idea of what was budgeted versus what was spent. You can see here the revenues were under budget, again, in the charges for services category. And then you also see in the expenditure area, the general government expenditures were under budget by $810,000. Again, keeping those costs in line with the disruption of services. Finally, at the end of our document, you'll find several compliance-related reports, one required by government audit standards. As part of our audit, we're reviewing internal controls over financial reporting, as well as compliance with contracts and grants and Florida statute. Pleased to report that there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses identified through our procedures there. The Auditor General also has 2 required reports, one being the accountant's report on the district's compliance with investment policy and with Florida statute, and there is no issues there. And the management letter is the last document beginning on page 30, again required by the Auditor General, and there were no findings noted to report in this letter as well. So a clean audit for the district. A lot of challenges faced this year, but you ended fiscal year 20 on a very positive note from a financial position standpoint, and certainly from a internal control standpoint too. I'd like to give you commendation for maintaining good internal controls through a very disruptive process. So with that being said, I would like to thank Charles and John and the team for providing us everything we needed for making sure the audit ran smoothly and on time. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Thank you, and stay there for a second. Can we have a motion to accept the audit, and then we'll go to questions after that. Accept the audit as presented, please.
Yeah, I will make a motion that we accept the audit as
Is
presented.
there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion, questions? Yeah, I just have a question. Would you go back
Sure.
to, just for clarification, would you go back to page 25? Explain what you went through there again. I know you went through something about underspent, something, $810,000. I was trying to follow, and I was
sure.
missing.
Yeah, it is a little fast. Sure. So if you look at the general government line item under expenditures, and you.
Oh, I see the.
Yeah, you'll see
I
the.
see where you are.
The final budget
Okay.
was 5.7. The district spent 4.9 million there, so the positive
gotcha.
variance there was
I
810,000.
got you. Okay, I was going faster, and I
Yeah,
missed some of
sorry.
that,
It is a lot
those
of
numbers, and
numbers.
thank you. Any other questions or comments, please? I know I've gone through a lot of audits in my time, too, and especially you look at their letter at the end always to see really what they thought of everything. So
Right.
I read that in detail, and I appreciate it. I think our people are doing a very good job.
Yes,
So-
agree.
If there are no other questions, motion is on the floor to accept the audit. All those in favor signify by, actually, I'm going to do a roll call vote on this because this is one of the three things you do with a budget. Mr. Loveland,
Aye.
Mr. Gruno,
Aye.
Mr. Nugent, and the chairman says aye. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
The next item is 9B, fiscal year 21 budget amendment from the NRP sales proceeds. Mr. Coffey?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a resolution recognizing the budget for monies received for the sale of a lot purchased through the NRP and putting the corresponding back in the expenditure account. There is a resolution for Mr. Reppinger to read. Staff recommends approval.
Mr. Reppinger.
Get to that page of the agenda. Resolution 2021-02, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Barefoot Bay Recreation District amending Resolution 2020-08, amending the budget.
Thank you, sir. There is a recommendation to approve Resolution 2021-02, increasing the R&M Capital Department budgeted proceeds from the sale of assets by $13,350 and increasing the R&M Capital Department NRP program budget by $13,350. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation? Motion by Mr. Nugent, second. Seconded by Mr. Gruno. Discussion, questions? No questions. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Building A Veterans Hallway Electronic Display System. John?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As most folks who've lived here a while know, Building A hallway is known as the Veterans Memorial Hallway. There are 7 boards listing the names of veterans who have died while living in Barefoot Bay, and there is not currently space for an 8th board. Representatives of the veterans approached me a couple years ago as we could see that there would be need for another board or expansion. Instead of doing a short-term fix of scrunching the artwork and adding an 8th board and then kicking this problem down the road, we discussed various options, one which we have vetted out of shifting to electronic kiosk system with a large monitor to have a rolling list of names, a way of people being able to put additional information other than just the name. If Mrs. Smith's husband, who's served in Vietnam, dies and she has a picture of him from the time he's in the service, this new system has the ability to upload that picture and a little bio about him. Staff researched various options, including an informal one of buying basically the hardware and finding someone from the computer club or local who could program it. That option was discarded because this is a very important feature to the community, and we did not want technical glitch to go bad and the person who wrote the code not to be available to fix it. So staff is recommending going with a bid from Advanced Kiosks, which will have a standalone kiosk with a mirrored, basically TV monitor up on the wall. This includes the procurement, remote support to get it set up, and an annual maintenance cost for troubleshooting and upgrades of software. We have met with Mr. Amos, one of the veterans in the community, was our colleague from the veterans working on this project. We met with him and Trustee Gruneau. They both like this system. There is funding available in contingency. Staff recommends award contract for the kiosk system at a cost of $24,300 to Advanced Kiosks and instruct staff to transfer the required funds from contingency.
Thank you, sir. You heard the motion. Is there you heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation? No.
I'll make a motion to
Oh.
accept the recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion, please.
Well, first I want to give Stephanie credit for finding this. I've been working on this for about 2 years when we realized that we were going to run out of space. This is a very nice setup that's used in other veterans places such as the hospitals, the cemeteries, and things like that. It really has quite an amount of functionality to it. Just to give you a little bit of a reference, I counted up the numbers of the names on the board. We are now at 875 names on that board. So that really does show that we are a veterans community. The nice feature about this is that this can be maintained by the Bay in perpetuity. It doesn't have to fall to a club. The other thing that's nice about this is, as John said, there's different ways we can modify it. You could put name, rank, theater that they served in. There was even a drop down if we had significant awards like the Purple Heart. I think it would be a fabulous place to take your grandchildren to go over and find an old relative. And if we can get this approved, certainly for the names that are already on the board, if the families have, like John said, a photo, we're going to be able to even put a photo in. I think the fact that we're in a lull between the deaths of Vietnam, or between the deaths of World War II and Vietnam, I guess Korea, but now is a good time to do it. Thank you.
Any other comments? I was also approached by Mr. Amos a number of months ago and brought this up to John, and I understood that others were working on it. So, again, I'm all in favor of this, too. I think it's a real addition to Building A when they open up. No other comments. All those in favor of the motion to accept the recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Building A tower roof replacement. Mr. Coffey.
Mr. Chairman, for folks who casually look at Building A, it looks like one building. Historically, it was two buildings that have been joined together. There's 2 pitched roofs, 2 flat roof sections, and 3 towers that have flat roofs. Within the last few years, both pitched roofs and the flat roofs have been replaced. Staff did not previously pursue replacing the tower roofs because one of the towers had an old HVAC system abandoned in place from the 2007 era that we were able to remove earlier this year. We recommend the board allow us to go ahead and replace these last 3 flat roofs to make the building as watertight as possible and to do the work while it's closed for the finishing up of the renovations project. Mr. Getz had two vendors come out and get up on the roof and look at it. One is a contractor for the shopping center re-roofing project that will be bringing the contract to you for authorization for signature on that one shortly. The other contractor has done multiple roofs for us, and they've done a fantastic job. Although this is not a budgeted project, there is sufficient capital contingency to cover this project. Therefore, staff recommends award contract for replacement of the 3 tower roofs at $24,300 to MGM Contracting, and instructs staff to transfer the required funding from contingency. Last thing I'll just mention is, although if anybody's looking at this in the audience or at home, MGM is slightly higher, Mr. Getz believes their proposal of how to tie the flat roof in with the walls makes it more watertight than the MGM proposal. And so that's why we're recommending the slightly higher bid.
Thank you, sir. There's a recommendation to award contract for Building A towers roof replacement at a cost of $24,300 to MGM Contracting, Inc., and instruct staff to transfer the required funding from contingency. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation?
Move to accept.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Nugent. Discussion, please. Questions, comments, discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Waiver of guest pass requirement for July 3rd celebration. Is this Mr. Coffey or Mr. Loveland? Mr. Loveland, please.
Yeah, this is a request, although Kathy and John have the right to this waiver without board approval. Since I serve on the committee, I felt that it was necessary to bring it for board approval by being a member of the committee and for transparency to the audience. What this is the 50th anniversary year of Barefoot Bay, and we are planning a big celebration that happens to fall on July 3rd because it coincides with the fireworks and some other events that are going on. This event is being held by Barefoot Bay Food and Beverage, and it is exclusively Barefoot Bay Food and Beverage. We will not have outside vendors as we have in the past, like food trucks or anything like that. The only outside vendors that we will have are whatever come with the clubs. All clubs and homeowners are invited to take part in this. We've got several residents taking part in the historical piece of this. We've got the craft club taking part in building a use for their crafts, and I don't know how many other clubs are taking part, but it is specifically for Barefoot Bay residents, but we did open it up to invite our neighboring Snug Harbor and whoever else, friends and family of homeowners without any charge or without passes.
Thank you, sir. Recommendation is to waive guest passes at pool number 1 on July 3rd, 2021 for the 50th anniversary celebration. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation? Moved by Mr. Nugent. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Gruno. Comments? I agree with you completely, Randy. I think it's going to be a good thing, and I think the more part of the recommendation or the next item is basically exactly the thing you're talking about, so I think it's good for the community. Are there other comments and questions? All those in favor of the recommendation to waive guest passes at Pool 1 on July 3 for the 50th anniversary celebration signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. The added item we have is E2, which again is an Oktoberfest, which is being planned for October 2, 2021. I was approached by the Paradise Planners. Kathy Mendes is involved in this. German Club is involved in this. They are trying to plan an Oktoberfest for October 2nd, 2021. They're going to do this basically exactly the same thing as you're talking about. All alcohol sales, things like that, will be handled by food services, and the food there will be the German Club putting on some food in Building A. I know they're going to do that. All the rest of the vendors there will be the local arts crafts people from the Bay that will be putting up the tents, etc. They are not charging to get into this event. They have also talked about, I know Paradise Planners told me that they are going to help Kathy pay for the band, so it should be a good day for food and service or food services. They're looking to use Building A, the lounge, the pool area. And again, people from the local community, Snug Harbor, et cetera, would be allowed to come in if they waive guest passes for that day. That's basically what I have. So I would make a recommendation that we waive guest passes at pool number 1 on October 2nd, 2021 for this Oktoberfest. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation?
I'll make a motion that we waive guest passes for the Oktoberfest.
Second.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Nugent. Again, questions, comments. That's basically all I've known. I've talked to these people in 2 days, and it sounded like such a good thing again for the Bay. So, and by the way, as Paradise Planner said, any funds or whatever left over that they make on this go to the charities, so it's not a profit-making organization. All those in favor of the recommendation to waive guest passes on October 2nd for the Oktoberfest, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Manager's report. Mr. Coffey.
Mr. Henley, good news always is followed by ungood news. We had a clean audit, and then we get a letter from the IRS stating that we were not eligible for the approximately $31,000 in tax credits our payroll company gave us for the Family First Corona Response Act from last year. So therefore, I wanted to give the community a heads up. You'll be seeing an agenda item in the future to authorize check to the IRS for $31,000. This is basically what they didn't make us pay last year. They're making us pay this year. Resident relations update. The March 2nd ARC meeting, 24 consent items were approved, 19 others, 15 were approved, 1 with measures, 3 with stipulations. There is an ARC meeting on the 16th in this building at 9 a.m., 25 items on the agenda. Violations Committee on the 26th of February, 2 cases came into compliance prior to the meeting, 9 were found in violation, and 3 are working with staff towards voluntary compliance. The violations meeting today was canceled ahead of time because most of the cases came into voluntary compliance. Next scheduled Violations Committee is March 26th in this building at 10 a.m. Food and beverage. Hopefully weather cooperates going forward. The Saturday and Sunday street dances. This week's lineup is the Jacks Band on Saturday and TC and Sass on Sunday. Previously been mentioned about the 50th anniversary celebration. The Color My World Cancer-Free T-shirts are available on the Lounge Administration Building and CVO office for $15. $5 of every shirt sold will go to the American Cancer Society. They're designed by our own Meg Freon. The Cancer Walk was postponed, but the shirts are here. And the first meeting for the 2022 Barefoot by the Lake Festival was recently held. Never too early start planning. Mr. Getz is continue to working on planned projects and unplanned issues like an underground sewer line at the shopping center suddenly not working, maintenance on the backhoe, finishing up the minor project of Building A of doing some painting and fixing a leak that we had around the door. Prepped for the arrival of 2 new sheds coming in soon, and addressed some other minor issues, and attended multiple conference calls regarding a risk management issue. Golf course, the premier event of the season is a week away, the club championship on the 19th and 20th. Due to COVID, there's no pre-tournament dinner, and pairings are based on handicaps and flights. Good luck to everyone involved. The chairman will be presenting the trophy. It'll be interesting if he has to present it to himself. Watertronics has completed the work on the irrigation pumps. General information, budget workshops are coming up next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. In this building is the first one, then the following Thursday is the second one. As alluded to, the shopping center roof replacement project, we have finally gotten everything squared away with the vendor, and General Counsel Reppinger is finalizing the contract language that'll come back to you for authorization for Chairman Mino's signature. The electrical system and parking lot lights upgrade project, that RFP will be on the next board meeting to select a member of this board to serve on it, and then it'll be released the following day. Before Ms. Kraus called me this morning with the news that they were full and telling me she was coming in, I had put in this yesterday to thank her for her efforts to use the Lutheran Church to host the vaccination pod. A lot of people in this room and outside of this room helped make that happen. One phone call does not bring a pod, but a community pestering folks will bring a pod is the lesson from that. And finally, an update, before I get the update about Building A, Pool 2 update. Just in today, the chemicals are balanced. The vendor came in, fired up the system, and we're not pumping at the right pressure. So he has to replace a couple valves on Monday, and hopefully everything works fine. And then we call for the permit, the inspection from the health department. Once that's approved, it opens the next day. Finally, Building A renovations project. Mr. Getz and I walked the site with the owner of the company today to go over outstanding issues that have related to accumulation of minor field adjustments. Rubber meets the road. At the next meeting, there will be one or more change orders that will extend the length of the project into April. I know this is not what people want to see, but we want to get the project done, fix as many long-term issues as possible. And I've privately sent the trustees a much more detailed explanation of what's going on the 23rd agenda. I'll have a lot of details in there, but it is moving along, but you have to get everything in the ground right before you call in the inspection to pour the concrete, and we're having the same issues above the drop ceiling area. Everything has to be perfect. Call in the inspector, get the approval, slap the installation, put the drop ceiling in, and it's downhill. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. Just a question about Building A, because we do get a lot of questions about that. They work on Building A. It's literally an everyday project kind of thing, correct? Is it?
There's been perceived slow times the last few weeks. Part of the issue is, while it is a construction site and we don't encourage folks to walk in, some residents have been wandering through. The work that has been happening over the last few weeks has been more in the tower buildings where people don't necessarily see it. One of the things that has consumed Stephanie, Matt, and I's time the last couple of weeks is trying to address the CCTV system that is in that same vicinity. Over years, we have piecemealed from a very small system to a complex system, and it's fiber optic lines. And one of the problems we ran into last week is when they tried to reroute the fiber lines, because of the age of the fiber lines, some of them broke. And when it started in a meeting earlier this week of how to proceed forward, because there's 3 vendors involved in this, we walked back and looked at some other areas where there's literally dozens of fiber lines just hanging along the wall, and made the decision to spend a little bit more money to put those in conduit and rerun those so we don't have this down system again. Part of the issue, here's a minor one that just Kathy Mendez almost scratched part of her hair out when she ran into this one, is the building department was fine with 2 sinks in the kitchen. The state food service people wanted a 3rd hand sink. So in that little area, which is less than 1/3 of this end of the building, there's going to be 3 hand sinks to wash your hands. Well, that necessitated cutting up the floor to tie into the sewer line, additional instant-on hot water heater, adjustments to the equipment that we're ordering, and that backed up the pouring of the concrete. And so that's a snapshot. The vendor wants to get this project done as quickly as possible. We want to get this project done as quickly as possible, but you can't pour concrete cost effectively, a little piece here, a little piece there. You want to pour it all at one time. And if folks remember, we bid this out 2 years ago, and his bid was in the $800,000 range. The bid that he bid last year that the board gave him was in the $500,000 range. So I understand his point. He doesn't want to have concrete people come out multiple times. He wants to have concrete truck poured one time. And anybody really interested in this, come see me on Monday or Tuesday, and I can walk you the site. I can show you much detail as you like. Your eyes, don't blame me if you leave my office with bleeding eyes. But anybody who wants the detail, just see me.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, comments? Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just starting off with a little bit of good news. As I sent to you in the email, but just saying it publicly to advise public that watches the meetings, with regard to the beach restroom project and the variance, I received communication with the site engineer, Scott Globitz, who spoke to FDEP. And FDEP advised that they believe that the piles that had been proposed with the project would not be required. Now, again, I'm taking this and reporting this through Scott Globitz and what he was told from FDEP. And they suggested applying for the FDEP permit, which is going to be required prior to engaging the county. And in accordance with Scott's experience, the county generally will defer to FDEP on those permit issues. So there's a strong likelihood, based on those communications, that the piles will not be required as part of the county approval, and that a variance then would not be required. So I've sent that email. I've advised Mr. Coffey accordingly, and I know that staff will work to pursue with TLC to work to pursue that FDEP permit. So hopefully that will resolve the issue. And if it doesn't resolve the issue, then we can always come back and revisit the variance issue. But we're hoping that will resolve it.
Question before you go on.
Sure.
Just a question. So who is Scott Globitz? Site manager for who? Site.
He's the site work engineer. I don't know what Scott's official role in that project was.
Works for us?
He is the
He's BSC.
He is the civil engineer sub who works through the TLC contract for us.
TLC. Okay.
Right. Sorry about that. That's
Okay.
it's BSC engineering.
Okay. And I guess my question is that so we haven't applied for the variance yet, and we may not need to do that, and we have to do a FDEP. Why didn't we know that you have to do the FDEP a long time ago? So we may not have never had into this. I guess that's a question.
I'm not so sure that TLC has had the internal communication with DEP to know that because of their approval on coastal construction, which DEP has jurisdiction over, that may control over the county. So Scott had that experience in the past, and when I talked to Scott about applying for the variance, he said, well, let's try to deal with it through DEP instead. So it was really Scott just kind of advising that would be the process that we would engage, and I said, well, why don't we check with them before we do that, before we apply for the variance.
So
to
is
see
he
how that's
checking
gonna
now?
go.
And, you know, I mean, it was 2 months ago when we said, okay, let's apply for a variance, and we're 2 months later. So is he doing that now? Is it in the process?
Well,
Have
now-
they submitted it? Have they?
Now we've turned that information over to TLC, so now they will take that and apply. So they have the information that they needed, and they needed to know who to talk to in DEP, and so Scott has advised who that is.
Thank you.
Yep. Next, at the February 9th workshop, the board discussed trustee membership numbers and terms. And I don't want to make this a huge discussion, but I did want to at least advise you, because I had said that I would look into the issue as far as researching it. You are a 5-member board, and the reason why you are a 5-member board is because there was a House Bill 1157 that passed in 2007 that allowed this board to be taken down from 9 to 5 members in a step process over successive years. So we went from 9 in 2007 to 7 to 5, what you are now, with 2-year terms. If you look at the statute 418 that governs mobile home park recreation districts, which we are, the statute provides for a 9-member board with 2-year terms. The reason that you are allowed to have a 5-member board is because of that special act. Based on your discussion at the workshop, I wanted to consider whether, based on the House bill that had passed, whether we could go back to a 7-member board or whether we could consider alternative options as far as the terms go without having to go back to the legislature. And after looking at the House bill and what was passed, I don't believe that that's possible. I think what would be possible if you were interested in changing the membership of this board in terms of either the numbers or the length of the term is to do one of two things. Either you would propose a referendum to rescind the prior referendum, which took us from 9 to 5 to put us back at 9, which I think you could do without a legislative act because that's what the statute allows you to do. Of course, that would be subject to a referendum, a vote of the electors of the district. Or and I think this is more in line with what you were thinking, you could go and propose another special act legislative change to the legislative delegation to propose whatever number and whatever length of term you want. So if the idea was to bring it back up to a 7-member board with longer terms, you could make that proposal, but that's going to have to go to the legislative delegation if you want to do that. So that's probably better discussed at a later agenda on as a formal agenda item. But I did want to at least advise you that under the current special act that governs your membership, we can't just unilaterally change the number or the term, even if we went to referendum.
Thank you. I think, and that needs a lot of discussion because there's some pros and cons to both sides of that. I would think that the easiest way to do it is to discuss it if we have an upcoming workshop, that we could just sit and really just sit down and talk it back and forth without thinking we're there to make a decision at that specific time. Because there are some real good pros and cons to this. So, I think we should just talk about this as we go forward and say, is there a time when we could all just sit down and talk about this in a workshop? Or some type of meeting. I'm not sure it has to be an agenda item to just take a minute or two and then go up and down on it. Because again, the term limits are the things that hurt us because you turn over majority of the board every 2 years, or every other year. I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Well, so I'll gladly take your direction. I mean, if you want to put that as a formal agenda item on a future agenda, or if you want to workshop it again, we can certainly handle that either way that the board wants to go with that.
I would do a workshop, Mr. Chairman.
Pardon?
I would suggest a workshop.
Yeah, we'll look at that in the future as we go on. Maybe we can set something up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr.
And the final thing that I wanted to mention was the ground lease with Stewart Medical. We're working on the lease agreement. I'm anticipating and hopeful that we're going to bring that to you in the first meeting in April. One of the interesting things that we found when we were doing the title work and looking at the property was that when the property was initially conveyed to the district in 1996 from Avatar, there was a resolution passed by the Board of Trustees, which I was not aware of, and I had never seen it. I don't think staff had seen it, and the board certainly wasn't aware of it. That actually designated that parcel as a park parcel. There is no reverter or any kind of reversionary interest in the deed from Avatar to the district that would present a problem in terms of using that parcel for commercial purposes, but that resolution did kind of cause a little bit of a concern as far as whether there would be anything in the title work that would operate as a reversionary interest or prohibit the parcel from being utilized that way. So we took a look at it. I don't think that it does, but when the item comes back to you, there will be a companion resolution that you will see that you will need to adopt that will rescind the designation of that parcel as Park Parcel 1. There are two parcels there. One is that singular parcel that was carved out of the main tract, and then that larger parcel that's vacant as well. They're both designated park parcels. One is Park Parcel 1 and one is Park Parcel 2. So why that was done, I still cannot tell you why that is. Obviously, there was an intent to keep it that way at the time that it was conveyed, but again, there's no prohibition against using it differently. You just need to go back. The only thing that really addresses it is the resolution that this board passed back in 97. It was 97-1. That's the only instrument that really addresses the designation as a park parcel. So as long as we go back and cure that by way of resolution, we should be okay moving forward. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Incidental trustee remarks, Mr. Loveland.
Yeah, I held a meeting, well, it wasn't really a meeting, gathering with some homeowners last week that was it was a very positive, very uplifting thing. We had about 35 homeowners that showed up. We had booked for 40. 5 were not able to make it. It was an RSVP, meaning that you had to submit that you were coming to it. And everybody who said that they were coming did show up, except for, like I say, the 5. They discussed things like DOR, facilities, management, BOT, budget. It was amazing because I facilitated the meeting, but I facilitated it so that the homeowners would cross-talk with each other. It was amazing. Half of them had correct information. The other half had no information. So it was a good, productive thing in that they were sharing information and really straightening out a lot of things, like probably where to go ask questions was not Facebook. And so we discussed exactly the chains of command or where to go get your questions answered. That sometimes coming to bringing something like, do I need a badge to the BOT is probably overkill when you could call the office and find out how to go get a badge. But a few of the things that they did is they found CitizenServe a little bit They found a struggle dealing with it. They found our website a little bit of a struggle maneuvering through. So I did say that I would follow through to see what we can do to make CitizenServe a little bit more user-friendly with our community. All of them had computers, and all of them were pretty computer savvy in being able to get in and out. The other thing that they were concerned with is I had some new homeowners in there that had not received, 2 of the 3 couples had not received their new homeowner package. Now, I realize that with COVID, we probably didn't have any homeowner orientations, but I don't know what our process is for making sure that the new homeowners, if we have 30 to 40 new homes being sold in here, that they're getting that little red folder that has all the information in it. So that was a little bit of a concern that I said that I would carry forward, which I am doing.
Do we do that, do you know, or is that done by by the realtors?
Well, when we bought here 6 years ago, or inherited here 6 years ago, our realtor provided, or our closer, Paradise Homes, Paradise Mortgage, provided us with that. However, I do know that we do provide that at our orientation, that and the key to the gate and those things, and I'm just not sure how that's happening in absence of that. So I thought I'd follow up with Lori and those guys at the office and see what they're doing to get that out there and see if maybe we've missed something there. But I encourage anybody to have these, just host it. I didn't run it. I didn't set an agenda for it. What I did is I hosted it, was there to get answers and go online if I needed to. But it was just good to have that conversation. It was very positive. You know, they had some concerns and some complaints, and found that some of the complaints weren't really complaints. Some of the concerns have been addressed. Like, there was that concern of nighttime music, which I was able to tell them because I knew that we would be having nighttime music in May. So it was very beneficial. What was really very beneficial about it the most beneficial about it, I would say, is the fact that there were 35 well-educated homeowners that walked out of here that have neighbors that they will educate. And we know that this happens because 6 years ago, everybody thought they paid an HOA fee. I don't know how many of you all remember that. And we now have homeowners out there correcting people. No, you don't pay an HOA fee. And they're out there, they're actually educating new homeowners and some old homeowners on how district fees work. So information is key, and getting our homeowners to share this and getting our homeowners to be part of the solution to some of these struggles is really key. I encourage anybody to host one. It took 2 hours of my time, and it was very, very productive.
Thank you. I applaud you for doing that. I have to write an article every month for the Tatler as the chairman, and one of the things that I find is that there are so many people who do not understand exactly how we operate, and it's unfortunate because you want them to understand, and this is a good way of getting that information out. And as you say, they can then spread it to other homeowners. So, yeah, congratulations. Mr. Gruno.
Well, first, I want to thank John for spending Tuesday afternoon with the State Department of Health folks. They had expressed an interest in maybe using one of our facilities, and if I'm right, this was too small, John, for them. And of course, we all know Building A is kind of in a rough shape. But anyway, give John credit for at least interacting with the state, and really big credit to Concordia Lutheran, CVO, the administrative staff over at the administrative building. To take over 3,000 phone calls is quite commendable.
Thank you. Mr. Nugent. Okay. Couple things I have. One, the Board of Trustees, I'm not sure, John, did you receive this email from Transportation Engineer, Florida Department of Transportation, about the construction that's going to go on 1A? You didn't receive, okay. You all received this email, correct, the board members? We received an email. It's from John D., P.E., Senior Transportation Engineer. He's an advisor consultant with the Florida Department of Transportation. And he's talking about they're going to be providing improvements to SR5 US 1 from Indian River County line approximately 8 miles north to Goat Creek. With that project, there are improvements that will affect residents of Barefoot Bay community, blah, blah, blah. And he addressed it to us as an HOA. The first thing I did was send back, said, no, we're not an HOA. Understand how we're elected and what we do. And we have a board and we have a manager who runs the place. And anyway, his whole thing was saying he was wondering if we wanted to have a virtual meeting with them to include topics of overall description of the project scope, detailed explanation of the scope as it relates to Barefoot Bay, open discussion on design elements, query about the best way to distribute notification to affected property owners, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My thing is I don't really need to do that as much as if it was necessary, you or Matt or someone else may want to know about this and find this out. Am I off base on that? I mean, I sure don't need a meeting with these people. But I think if he's interested, I responded to him simply explaining how we're run and that I would contact our community manager and someone would get back to them if, in fact, we were interested in something. But, I don't think we need a big meeting unless the rest of you are interested. You could also be in that meeting. But I guess I would submit this to you or Matt or someone to contact them and see if there's anything we actually need out of this, okay?
Mr. Chairman, the only place I could think it would interfere would
What's
be
that?
out. The only place I could see that it interferes with Barefoot Bay would be out by the traffic light.
Yeah, and I have no idea what they're doing, but again, I'm not going to go out there and get involved in the mechanics of it. That's what our staff does, and they, So again, it's there. We can do whatever you want. I'm just bringing it up. The last thing I have is, an answer to a letter that was read. It says about the chair, and it has to do with audience participation and the chair answering questions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. People have to understand that we do have bylaws and everything, and the chair has discretion as to whether or not they actually answer questions, bring it out to others, or have them answer it or whatever. Many questions asked in audience participation or in the letters that are sent in are answered actually during the agenda time as we discuss different agenda items. That information comes out, most all the time of things that people are interested in, either in a report from our community manager or in discussion of agenda items. At the same time, there are a lot of questions that are asked that simply do not deserve an answer. They just are simply, why are you people all idiots? Well, we don't need to respond to that. So again, some things are worth mentioning, some things are worth answering. Every single letter that I get, as I mentioned before, every email, I answer in detail to people. So I just want people to know that if things come up of importance that someone asks a question about, and if I know that it is not ever going to come up in an agenda item or I would probably make every effort to respond to that in some way, if I thought it was appropriate to respond. I have nothing else. Anything else for the good of the company? A motion to adjourn, please.
I make a motion that we adjourned.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.